gas will go into the stomach and they want to come back.
Okay.
Come out.
Is that what's known as acid reflux?
Acid reflux.
Right.
So we have gastroesophageal reflux conditions, or GERD.
Right.
So we have that kind of situation. Now, that is not to say that all the gas we are producing is from the food we are eating. There are some times that we take stuff that unaware we are swallowing gas.
Okay.
Or swallowing air or eating air.
Right.
If you try, for example, you take a lot of carbonated drinks, you just open the bottle and it fizzes out a lot of gas. You take some of this into your system.
Yeah.
Now this gas that will get mixed within your system, in the stomach.
Right.
And remember that food will stay in the stomach. You see, when we talk of the gastrointestinal tract, it consists of the stomach, let's say from the esophagus to the stomach, to the small intestine, to the large intestine, and to the rectum, and then out. Now, food, when you eat it, will has a transit time within the stomach of about 4 hours. Now, so if you take in these carbonated drinks, it means that the gas will be sitting up there in your stomach for like 4 hours until the stomach finally empties itself. This is going to interfere with your digestion. So naturally, it would want to come out through the upstairs. Now, food is able to go through the intestines, go through the smaller intestine and into the large intestine, where the undigested one would be latched on by the bacteria in the large intestine, and then they produce their gas producing, and then you have all this discomfort. So actually, the kind of sugar in most of the dairy products, milk, the cow milk, cheese, and all that. That's where we have the lactose. The fact that you can't doesn't mean that you have lactose intolerance. It's lactose. It's kind of, we go into genetics a bit. Somebody's system or is not made up to tolerate that. So we're saying that all these things are bambara beans, the legumes, the eggs, there's some carbohydrate. Pepper. Good. Pepper. Somebody can eat pepper and then he's having a problem with gas. Somebody else can eat pepper, doesn't have a problem with gas. So we come to the point where we're saying that it is more like individualistic. I mean, you may be okay with this, some other person may not be okay with it. So it's basically how it works with you and how it works for you. In any case, gas is good. If you go to a hospital too, and sometimes we ask you, are you able to pass gas? If you go through an operation,
a surgery,
and then you are lying there, and then they come put a stethoscope on your tummy, we want to listen to bowel sounds.
Yeah.
So if we hear the bowel sound, the rumbling or the stomach growling, then you know that okay, at least the intestines are really at peristalsis. It's actually working. So we're not going to have a situation where because we've cut you and the intestines have become a bit silent, then you can get constipated or you may have some obstruction in there.
So it's okay to. We've talked about these different things that cause gas and gas being expelled from the body, but there are situations where people get trapped gas. And that causes, does that what causes the distension, the stomach distension and other issues internally?
Yeah, there are situations that can cause you to have trapped gas and a lot of gaseous bowel. You have a gaseous bowel. The bowel is full of gas. It's bringing a lot of discomfort. I might say that if you can link constipation and gas. Which causes what? Is it the gas that causes the constipation or the constipation that causes the gas? Somebody may have Crohn's disease of the intestine. Somebody may even have a tumor in the gastrointestinal tumor that is blocking the passage of substances through the intestine. So it means that the passage of gas becomes a problem. The gas is produced, either goes up through or comes out through upstairs or goes through the backside. So if there are tumors that is kind of hindering the movement of gas, that can get it trapped, and then you may have that kind of discomfort. Sometimes it's painful.
Okay, Dr. Bote, let's talk about, I think when it comes to gas, most of us accept that it's not too dangerous. Usually, whether if you have a burp here or if it's a fart here and there. However, what kind of treatments should one take because whether you've eaten and you're getting trapped wind and so forth, is it usually just over-the-counter medication, or you need to be diagnosed in the hospital before you can take antacids? And there's so many things out there for the
mostly
in the pharmacies.
It's over-the-counter medications are available. So the antacids, and a lot of these antacids contain magnesium hydroxide, aluminum hydroxide, mucomagnesia, and simeticon. So it's a substance called simeticon that is within the antacids. That helps. It may help not exactly with the gas, but it relieves you of the symptoms. You would want to go to your doctor to seek further help if the symptoms are still persistent. It's always happening, and one thing you need to do as a person probably suffering from this is to have what I call a food diary. So you are going through this thing all the time. You eat and you feel uncomfortable. Just every day, take it like 2 weeks. Okay, this is what I ate, this is what I think I've taken. So the next time, let me eliminate this one and see if that is how I realized that, look, now I'm no more good with milk. So I take very little. Once a while I do take milk, but mostly I don't. My beans and bambara beans, I would take bambara beans, but I would take a little amount. I call it this way. You remember this artist called Notorious B.I.G.?
Oh, yeah.
Back then, yeah. So there are the bigger of the notorious things you're eating, there are some things that are notorious for causing gas. So now go Notorious SMALL. Go small on the things that are notorious for causing gas. I mean, if you know it, I take little milk, I don't take too much. I take little beans, I don't take too much. Bambara beans and eggs a little bit, because these things are produce gas and it makes you uncomfortable.
All right, Doc, in regards to treatment, we've mentioned a few things about over-the-counter. Now, I heard that there was an issue whereby a gentleman having gastrointestinal issues, going to the pharmacy, buying over-the-counter, being given aspirin and Andrews and all these different antacids and constantly continuing with them, led to him actually getting an ulcer with the continuous abuse of the over-the-counter drugs. What's the correlation?
That's
possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
Right.
When you are taking the aspirins and the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, as we call them, we're currently using them. Aspirin itself can cause inflammation of the mucosa of the stomach, or can cause something in cause a sore in the stomach, because it's actually causes maybe abrasion. The mucosa defenses of the stomach may not be too good. It will end up causing problems. It is always advised that when you use anything over the counter, within a few days, if you are not seeing relief, it's better to go to the doctor. Some people may be having this, the pain is up here, and they are taking antacids, it's not working. Sometimes an endoscopy could help. You realize that there's something we call hiatus hernia.
Okay, endoscopy, what's that one?
Endoscopy, like it's a scoop. It's a scoop that is put through the mouth through the esophagus, and actually videos everything within the stomach and the upper part of the GI or the gastrointestinal. It shows in the screen. So if there's ulceration somewhere, it can be seen on the screen. If there's a hernia, we have a diaphragm. The esophagus goes through the diaphragm into the abdomen. Sometimes, like we have hernia coming through a hole. That hole there, you can have part of the stomach coming out of esophagus, pushing up into the upper part of the diaphragm, which we call a hiatus hernia. All these things are things that you may not be able to diagnose on your own. So if you use an over-the-counter magnesium hydroxide or the antacids, they have so many names, and they are not getting a good relief, and the symptoms seem to continue even after doing all your elimination of the drugs. You think that of the kinds of foods that you're taking, it's important to see the doctor for maybe further diagnostic checks to be done for you.
Okay, I mean, when it comes to gas, I guess maybe in food in general, they say you are what you eat. And if, since we're saying that, most gas is caused by what we put in our mouth or the things, should we then be aware, like if you have these issues, should we always be checking what we're eating and things like, and avoid it? What about things like carbonated drinks, for example?
Yeah.
Should we avoid it completely? Or in moderation? Well,
I think everything in moderation. I mean, that's the gold standard. Everything should be in moderation. You don't eat too much of the fatty foods. When you eat fatty foods, you're going to put pressure on the gallbladder to produce bile to emulsify the fats. And for example, somebody who may have a have a gallbladder problem, and you're not producing too much of good amounts of bile to emulsify your fats, you feel bloated all the time. So you take big amounts of fatty meals, you end up feeling bloated.
Yeah.
You take big amounts of too much of protein, too much of everything is basically bad. So that's why I say that make sure your diet is a little bit of the, a little bit of
Balanced.
Balanced.
Do you recommend taking things like acidophilus? I used to take that quite a bit. Her natural health remedy, and it says, okay, well, it produces more good bacteria, and I don't know if it worked, but mentally,
like probiotics.
Probiotics, yeah.
Probiotics also help in this regard.
Okay.
I mean, you've got some
live yogurt.
Live yogurt are good for.
I don't like yogurt.
And then sometimes there are other things. We have the activated charcoal, for example. It's able to absorb gases, so you can use in extreme cases where you have a challenge of gas. Activated charcoal can be given to you in the form of tablets.
Not the one that we used to cook outside.
No. There's a chemical.
So nobody goes to go
activated charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Doc. Last question. I don't know about anybody else. Mine in particular smells like roses. But in regards to the actual pungentness, the smell of some of the gases that come out of us.
From which end?
Either end.
Okay.
Is it based on what we're consuming? Or is it based on bacteria or, some of the acid that's within us?
That's a good question. You realize that most of the time, most of the gases, they don't have any odor. A few times
roses.
You can have yes, roses. A few times you can have very bad ones. Now, the upon digestion of the food by the bacteria, they usually the gases that produce hydrogen gas, oxygen, nitrogen gas, something methane.
Mm-hmm.
You have methane being produced. Oh. So these are
methane's flammable.
Yes,
it's flammable, but it doesn't smell. It's odorless. Now, what brings out the pungent smell or the bad smell is when the breakdown of the substance also produces sulfur. So if you've done those who have done chemistry will tell you that when you have hydrogen and sulfur come together, it form hydrogen sulfide gas, which is really bad.
Pungent.
I remember when I was doing my national
stink bomb.
Yeah. I was doing my national service as a sixth form. I was in a lab with the students, and I just mixed hydrogen chloride and iron sulfide, and I just produced a gas at the back. And they were fighting among themselves. I mean, who did that? The
smell was.
It's so bad. It smells like rotten egg.
Yes. Yeah, have you seen those videos on YouTube where very naughty some guys let out air from the other side and they try and light it?
I was young at that time. I was very young, so I was being mischievous. So it depends on what kind of breakdown comes from the mixture.
Yeah.
So if there's sulfur in it, then it's going to smell really bad, and that is what embarrasses you when you are doing a presentation you can embarrass a chief, you can embarrass a pauper on the street.
Well, I'm a lady, and lady don't do such things. I'm sorry. No, we don't.
I actually believed that myth until I went out with a girl. All right, so we're going to be back in just a few moments. Yes, girls do it too. Thank you very much, Dr. Boite, for coming in and teaching us more about these GI issues, gastrointestinal gas. Believe it or not, we're actually going to continue with this particular topic on another time because we haven't exhausted all our questions. But we'll be back in just a few moments.